So thanks a lot for joining me today.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the time to have a quick interview with you. And as a mental health professional, I really wanted to say thanks for giving me the opportunity to ask you about how some of the things today, with all the stuff that are going on around us with civil unrest,
Yeah.
impacts you personally.
Okay.
So I was hoping perhaps you could give us a quick introduction as to who you are and what you do for a living.
Sure. Well, my name's Lamont McFerrin. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a Tai Chi instructor. And I work with people individually and in groups. And I work with folks who are suffering from anxiety, from schizophrenia, from substance addiction. And I help them find more balance and clarity in their minds. Essentially, I help people become more empowered over old habits of thinking. Because the reality of the situation is, if the old habits are unproductive, that chatter in our mind, if it's unproductive, if there's too much of it, or if it's, negative self-talk, or just something, or if I'm judging others, I consider that unproductive. If it's unproductive and it just runs us, then we feel disempowered. And psychologically speaking, one of the keys to reducing depression and reducing anxiety is having that feeling of empowerment. So I teach people how to work with their own minds and how to learn to be the director of their minds. So learn to be kind of in charge of what's going on rather than the old habits running them. They create the new habits. And that is leads to empowerment, which leads to less depression, less anxiety, more control over our minds in general, more clarity, and just feeling better. Yeah.
So when I think about what you do and having had the opportunity to see the direct impacts of how you work with clients, how when you look at all the things that are going on in the world around us,
Mm-hmm.
um, as a mental health professional, what sort of trends do you see as it relates to some of the civil unrest issues that we see going on around us today?
Well, I mean, one of the trends that leads to just more agitation in our minds in general and more depression is we're more and more attached with our phones, screen time. First thing in the morning, looking at the screen. Last thing at night, every time we're just a little bit bored, looking at the screen. And that in general is a trend that can create a lot of agitation in our minds and confusion
Sure.
and anxiety. And essentially, our minds are not designed to be computers, right? But if we look at a screen too much, what's happening is we look at a screen, the information comes into our mind and our mind processes the information. And then we look at the screen again, more processing, look at it again. And a lot of this stuff we're looking at it, we're like, is it real? Is it not real? So it's like it's not straightforward either.
Sure.
And so we overwhelm our minds with data, essentially, nowadays, a lot of us. And I can do this too. I can overwhelm my mind with data. But if you look at human history, going back 100,000 years, we spent a lot of time just like in the woods, looking for roots or looking for something to eat. And our minds had a lot more presence. They had to be more present, because if we weren't present, we would miss our opportunity to get food. And that presence is something that's dwindled over the years, but we can bring that back into our consciousness just through, shifting our behavior, pushing back on the amount of time we look at our phones, for example. Because ideally, a balanced state of consciousness is one where the mind is thinking and analyzing something, but then takes a break. Then is quiet for a few seconds at least. And then, it thinks about something else. Then it takes a break again, thinks about something else. So there's this balance, this dance almost between analysis and quiet and stillness in our minds. And we need both aspects to really function highly as a human. And nowadays we have to like consciously try and carve out those times when we can find stillness in our minds. And we have to use techniques, which I teach, to help quiet our minds down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you, in regards to, those are some good concepts to consider in regards to, all the things that are going on in the media today. How do you feel that the media plays into ramping up people's emotions to jump in and cause, or is it directly a cause of some of the challenges that we face today? Like when we look at, for example, the unrest that went on in Seattle recently up there, when we saw the economic hardships that people were facing. How do you feel that being more mindful and being more present would play into creating a better balance for people that are facing or getting involved in or getting involved in that sort of unrest? Is that important, do you think?
Well, the more balanced our minds are, the more effective we are at whatever we're doing. So it's, and that's like, you could like the greatest musicians, they have a lot of presence in them. They have that balance. The greatest athletes, the greatest physicists. Einstein would think about, complex theories or formulas, and he would just ponder these formulas in his mind and like walk around. But then after that, he would play the violin for a while, just
Sure.
to find like quiet.
So we live in an area that we're pretty fortunate to live in, not in a big city. We live in a smaller city, so we live in obviously a lot quieter community.
Yeah.
How, when we look at some of the problems that are largely being faced in other cities, like with the rioting and all that sort of thing, how do those sort of situations impact you directly?
Well, they impact me just from the perspective of, it's a concern for sure. I have kids.
Sure.
I have, relatives, and just, I don't want this, if the riots spread everywhere, it could be a real problem.
Sure.
And if I pay too much attention to it as well, that can affect my state of consciousness. Sure. And I can become all agitated. If I take in too much data, that could be a problem. Then I'm less effective. But I'm not saying turn my back on any of this stuff either. It's just ingesting it in a proper amount. There's only so much you can learn through the media.
Sure.
And you don't have to hear the same story like 50 times. Sure. You can hear it, you can understand it, but and ultimately it helps motivate me though I want to work with more and more people on helping them to find more balance in their minds.
Sure.
Because I know if it's the people who are like highly agitated, that they're just easily manipulated. And they're the ones who are going to be like causing the most problems.
Sure.
Especially a young, 20-year-old guy. I can imagine when I was 20,
Yeah.
I would have been in the middle of it probably, in ways. So
when adding on to that, how obviously you have a lot of skills in dealing with some of the emotional traumas and that we face as a society today. What elements do you feel help you the most? And how could those elements be used to create a more connected community?
Well, it really all starts with just being the discerning witness to our own thoughts. So noticing our own thoughts. And if we don't notice our thoughts, if we don't notice them, we tend to just self-identify with the thinking. It's like, oh, that's me,
Okay.
and so if it's me, it's not going to change because that's just me. I can't, that's me. It's like, no, it's not me, it's my thought. And that thought could be an old unproductive thought, perhaps an old unproductive pattern of thinking. And if that's the case, I want to be the director of my mind and be able to like quiet that down, re-steer it or reboot it. I mean, that unproductive thinking might be something even such as like negative self-talk,
Okay.
which is probably an epidemic in our culture, and if I can help people to learn how to be the witness to their thoughts, a mindful witness, and one term for that is metacognition, mindful metacognition, cognition of cognition. If we can learn to be the mindful, witness to our thinking, then we're in a position to determine whether we want to change those thoughts or not. Then we're in a position to notice if I'm, let's say, ruminating. If this is happening too, it's the same thought over and over and over. Go, 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 go. If the mind's going. So just being the mindful witness to our thinking, metacognition, is essentially the king and queen of all mindfulness practices that all of us would benefit from learning and using. And then again, like I say, we're more in a position of empowerment because like, oh, that old thought, quiet down,
So if we have a thought about something negative that's taking place in the world around us,
yeah.
would you consider that a conscious thought or a subconscious thought?
Oh, well, that's a deep question. The subconscious is a deep issue. I mean, one way to look at the mind is the conscious mind is the surface. You want to imagine a lake. Conscious mind is the surface of the lake. The subconscious mind is the body of the lake. So the majority of the lake is the subconscious. When I'm driving my car, it's essentially my subconscious mind that's driving, because my conscious mind can be thinking about just about anything.
Sure.
But the subconscious mind knows how to drive the car, the muscle memory, the question, all our beliefs, all our deep-seated beliefs are in our subconscious.
Okay.
All of them. And it's up to us, through skillful training, we're able to figure out what those beliefs are and then figure out whether they serve us.
Okay.
Or not. Because we can be exploited. I mean, that's what advertisers do. Just on a conscious level, they just keep dropping through repetition.
Sure.
They keep repeating these phrases, and then they just sink into our subconscious. And governments can use that. Actually, the first person to talk about that I'm aware of was Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda for Nazi Germany. And he was right spot on. He said, just keep the message short and keep repeating it over and over and over again. And that's what they did in Germany. They gave everybody radios. Did you know that? They sent the population, they gave everybody in the population radios so they could just have these messages through their radio just sink into the subconscious of the people, and therefore kind of control them.
Do you think some of those messages that at a broader scale, do you think some of those messages impact some people who are more called to action, which causes some of the challenges that we face today?
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, a lot of these, like a young guy, like I just go back to when I was 20 years old, I was playing rugby and I was, just living that kind of lifestyle, and if there would have been some kind of like thing going on in the streets, I'd have been there probably,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
really. And so, yeah, I mean, it just, but the more we can learn as a people to be the witness to our own thoughts and to be in charge of our own minds and to reprogram our subconscious if we want to. I mean, nobody taught me when I was 20 that I could do any of that stuff. I had no idea. But just culturally speaking, if we can learn to do that, if that could be part of our educational system, perhaps, then we're just going to be way better off.
Sure.
Way more balanced, less likely to just take orders from people and just.
Yeah, it certainly seems like balance is a key to a lot of overcoming some of the challenges that we face,
Yes.
and finding ways to be more positive and just loving each other and having a good
Okay.
human connection.
Yeah.
When I think of some of the challenges like the oil pipeline issues, the economy that we've got going on around us, injustice, like
Yeah.
social injustice and
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
How do you keep from being entirely overwhelmed? I don't mean specifically just shutting the media or the news off, because it's good to know what's going on around us.
Yeah.
But what keeps you level-headed and in a continual state of wanting to help others, even though it seems like the world around us is sometimes falling apart?
Well, a lot of it does have to do with my just my attention. And I do pay attention to what's going on around me, but in my subconscious mind, in all of our subconscious minds, one component of the subconscious is our subject library. So that's where everything we're interested in. We have a limited amount of space and we have books. And what I've been doing is trying to get rid of some of the books on politics, because I mean, I have some books on politics still. I'm into it, but not as into it
Sure.
as I was. I'm adding books on, Buddhism or Hermetics, Stoicism, mystic Christianity, just all that. I'm adding those books to my subject library, so I'm not overwhelmed by, the political scene. And well, something a friend told me recently was, you know, and he doesn't pay too much attention to politics. He said, well, I can't change it. I can't change it. Why would I put that much mental energy into something that I really can't change? It's not my purpose to change it. And I could see that is true for myself too. I mean, I don't think I'm meant to be a politician. I'm meant to help people work with their minds. So I have to focus on how to work with the mind,
Hmm.
and not spend too much time in the political realm, which is 99% of the time just really frustrating and irritating. And, you know, eh, I see both sides. I see neither side,
Sure.
I'm like, I don't resonate with any of that wholly at all. So,
Yeah, I think that's a really positive way to look at it, and a good way to not just bring balance to ourselves, but to kind of control what we have going into ourselves so that we don't inadvertently, subconsciously think the things that we're feeding into us,
oh,
so they
right.
impact us. And
Yeah.
it kind of goes into, really, I think one a good final question would be, what sort of things do you feel, and you've already kind of touched on some of this, but what do you focus on contributing to help improve the lives of the people around you,
Yeah.
And a follow on to that would be, do you feel that as individuals that what you're contributing makes a difference to the community, the world community as a whole? And I
Yeah.
guess, let me rephrase that. When I, what sort of things do you feel that you contribute to help the broader community as a whole? And do you feel that those contributions as individuals are what we all need to make to help make the world a better place?
Yeah. Well, I do believe that our minds are just vastly more powerful than we realize. And it's true for all of us across the board. I think as far as like the evolution of humanity, we haven't reached that state of understanding that yet. But we will, I believe, eventually. And yeah, I think just helping people tune up their own minds or make their minds more effective, I do think it can shift the culture. I mean, and that's how the culture needs to shift, is just one mind at a time.
Sure.
You know, if as more and more of us begin feeling empowered over our situation, we have more clarity at that point. We have our thinking is more effective. We're more creative. I mean, we can that, and that's the kind of stuff I work on teaching people. And yeah, I believe like one person who really has a balanced mind can really, well, according to Hermetics, which I haven't talked about yet, but I'll just mention quickly, Hermetics is all about mind is all. God mind is everything. God mind is everything. And we just need to harmonize our mind with the God mind. And then we start tapping into our power. And essentially, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to align my own mind with like a universal kind of truth. And that's why I don't want to pay too much attention to the media, even though I do, but it's a moderate amount because I don't want to align my mind with their truth. I want to align my mind with like a higher truth. And in Hermetics, they talk about if you have a higher vibration in your mind, everybody around you feels it. So it spreads, you
Okay.
see. So yeah, if I can help people to get to a more harmonious place in their mind, I think that will help their family, and it can spread out.
So we can still today, even with all the things that we have going on around us, we can change our society one person at a time
Yeah.
and spread a better vibration
Yeah,
everywhere.
that's about it. Yeah.
That's excellent. I appreciate it. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add, or what would anything else that you feel is important to the discussion of civil unrest or some of the challenges that we're facing today?
Well, there's a Stoic philosophy of every challenge is an opportunity. And if we can look at whatever challenges are facing us, because that's part of the human condition, we have challenge after challenge after challenge. I mean, it's not going to end.
Sure.
It just keeps going. But how we face those challenges really determines our overall success. And if we can just shift the challenge, instead of a challenge hitting me and I'm like, oh, just feeling bad, or feeling like a victim, or feeling just angry, or whatever it is, if I can, okay, this is an opportunity. How can I face this most effectively? And ideally through working with my mind, I'm more effective at dealing with various challenges. And if I overcome this challenge, then another challenge will come at me from another direction. But just developing the philosophy that challenges are in fact opportunities is helpful, and I think it's a realistic way of trying to improve our own minds and our culture. I mean, because let's face it, humanity has been full of like challenges for,
Forever.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
But so that it's part of the deal, and now is nothing special that way. The
Sure.
challenges might be a little different, but there's still challenges. And 100 years from now, there's going to be challenges, which will be different than the challenges today. But if we can deal with things from a position of clarity and balance, we're better off.
Excellent. Yeah. So if somebody was feeling overwhelmed, uh, where can they learn more about you?
You could go to look up Heart Mind Center on YouTube.
Okay.
I have a bunch of videos on that. You can look up Heart Mind Center on Insight Timer as well. I give classes, weekly classes on Insight Timer. I'm also doing live classes in lacrosse at Cooley Recovery Center on Mondays,
Okay.
free to the public, and quarterly classes here in Viroqua at the Commons.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks so much for meeting with me today.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.